Hello, Modern World History. Welcome to this lecture, number 5 in your notes if you need it, Causes of the French Revolution. We're going to look into what brought about another revolution just after we had the American Revolution and kind of the reasons leading up, kind of how we went into the American Revolution and being taxed by the British. So we're going to dive into that today in this lecture. The first thing we're going to talk about is the estates. The estates was the social economic classes that were in France at the time. And France is one of the most powerful nations. And as you can see from this picture above me, you have 3 of them. You have 2 on the top and 1 at the bottom. And so we're going to look into those. Now, when we look at these estates, there are specifically 3, and it forms a triangle. Basically, the least amount of people are at the top, the majority of the population is at the bottom. At the very top was the clergy, part of the Roman Catholic Church. Next under them were the nobility. This was all the rich nobles, and they held the government positions. These 2 groups controlled about 30% of the land at the time. Now, everyone else, including the middle class, the lower class, and peasant farmers, were a part of the third estate that made up 98% of the population. However, they had no influence in government. Also, those first 2 classes were given based upon if you were in the Roman Catholic Church, in the body of the church, or if your family had come from money and had money. There was no upward mobility, meaning that you could be a really rich banker, but you might be part of that middle class and you weren't a part of the nobility. So even though you probably had more money than someone in that nobility, you were still stuck at the bottom. And so think of it as a triangle. Clergy at the top, nobility here making up about 2% of the population, and then everyone else. But all decisions came from the king and those at the top. Here's another great way to look at it. If you look at this chart, you can see at the bottom you have first estate clergy, second estate nobles, and then everyone else in the third estate. On the very left of this is the population. So the third estate makes up the majority. They also own a majority of the land. And they pay all the taxes. They have the most influence in France based on paying the taxes, based on owning the land, based on just numbers alone, yet they don't get any decisions in government, meaning that decisions that are made in government aren't necessarily for their well-being. And so this old feudal system, this way of thinking is really going to hurt as we get rolling into some of the other causes. So understand the estates. Clergy, nobility make up about 2%, and then the third estate makes up 98%, own most of the land, have no government influence, and yet pay all the taxes. No taxation without representation. Sounds like we might hear that again. At the same time this is occurring, we have those 3 estates. It has always been that way in France. Things are slowly going to start to change. And so the third estate is going to embrace the ideas of Enlightenment thinkers, especially the middle class, those who have education. They're going to read the likes of Montesquieu, Rousseau, Voltaire, John Locke. They're going to read all those. And then they're going to have a perfect example, as many other countries will as we go through history, of the American Revolution. People standing up to a monarchy or those who have power saying that the people don't have power and they deserve power, and they are going to be inspired by this. It should be noted that this third estate is the only one who are really going to embrace these Enlightenment thinkers' ideas. Why? Because it doesn't help the first or second. They already have power. Why would they want to change anything? So it's really just going to be focused on that third estate. Now, here is when things could be okay in France, is if you had strong leadership. However, you're not. This picture is of the Palace of Versailles, which will be in France, and will be brought about by these terrible leaders. Okay, King Louis the 14th. This first picture over far away over here was the guy who's going to build this. This is going to be enormous. It's going to be expensive. And guess who's going to pay for it? The third estate. Okay? But it's only going to be for nobility and the clergy to be there. They're going to throw huge parties there. You can go visit it. It's massive. It's impressive. I hope some of you have, and maybe you can talk about it. But it is amazing. It cost a lot of money. Then you get King Louis XV and King Louis XVI, all in a row, that are going to add to all these problems happening as the Third Estate gets madder and madder as we continue. If you don't think I was being serious about how lavish the Palace of Versailles was, here's some statistics. 700 rooms, 1,200 working fireplaces, 60 staircases. It's over 30,000 plus acres, okay? Or 46 plus square miles. The city of Watsonville is less than 7 square miles. So this palace and all the land around this palace and all these separate buildings is so much bigger than Watsonville itself. There's going to be tons of sculptures. There's going to be 1,400 waterfalls outside, 6,000 paintings. It's going to be everything that shows if you're on the top, you're on the top, and if you're not, you're not. And this would be your view if you were able to stay in the Palace of Versailles, overlooking this beautiful, lush, landscaped area. Now, when the French Revolution is about to happen, the person in charge is King Louis XVI. He is going to be a terrible leader. He's going to be super indecisive. He's not going to listen to the people who actually know best, and he's going to make horrible decisions. One of the decisions is going to let his wife go on constant spending sprees, and she's going to become known as Madame Deficit. Okay, deficit means debt, and that's Madame Antoinette or Marie Antoinette. Maybe some of you have heard her before. Over here, this big guy is King Louis XVI. He's going to make terrible decisions. She's going to spend all the money, and that is very, very bad. We're also going to get economic issues that are going to bring all of this to the front. Okay, everything that's happening, these class problems, are going to come about now. Remember, you don't mess with people's money, and you don't mess with their stomachs. And if you do, you might be in for a revolution. Now, there's really 3 reasons that stack up, and it's kind of like 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals revolution, okay, right here, if you think about it. The first thing is that France had a huge deficit, meaning debt. The money they were bringing in wasn't as much money going out, which would be a deficit. Governments don't want to have that. It means the economy is not going too well. You can't pay back all that money. You're going to have to take out loans. It's an issue. Okay, and it was because France was fighting many wars, especially against the British. America should thank them because France is going to come help us in the American Revolution, maybe the biggest reason we're able to win that war. So thank you, France. The next one was that the Third Estate, who was paying the taxes, couldn't make a profit from their businesses. Remember, the Third Estate is made up of that middle class. So you have bankers, you have lawyers, you have doctors, you have people who have money, yet they're getting taxed so much that they can't make a profit. And then to add and make matters worse is that during this time, France has some terrible weather conditions, which means they have terrible harvests, which they eat about a loaf of bread a day, and grain prices go through the roof. So food costs tons too. So you've got a problem. The government needs money because they have a bunch of debt. They're taxing everyone so much that they can't make a profit, which means people are having a rough time living. And then to make matters worse, they can't buy food. Can you say hangry? This is a great example of deficit, and you can see kind of the pictures. If you see the revenue is the money that's brought in by taxes or the money the government brings in. This is for the United States, for example. Okay, and this is a little older. On the left is the revenue. On the right is what is called the spending, okay? And so whatever you bring in, you're going to pay toward your spending. But that little bit that's left, that's not paid for, is you're going to have to take out loans. You're going to have to find other ways to pay it. And that is called the deficit, the debt. And so the United States right now is running up a debt, but also France at this time is running up a debt. And one of the only ways you can pay it off is through taxes or taking out more loans. So tax the people to try to pay this off. And this is going to be France's answer because King Louis XVI is super indecisive. And it's going to lead to more problems. Until next time. Now, Make sure to take the comprehension survey in the link below so I know that you watched this. And if you watched it and get all questions right, you know you understood this. Have a wonderful day.